the 19th century was a turning point for the Philippines. Global developments and local struggles came together to awaken the spirit of nationalism. In this journey, we will explore the events that shaped a new Filipino identity and prepared the nation for the fight for freedom. Scene 1: The opening of the Suez Canal, 1869. In 1869, the Suez Canal was officially opened. For the first time in history, Europe and Asia were directly connected by a waterway. Travel that once took months could now be completed in weeks. The Philippines, long isolated from European affairs, was suddenly brought closer to the wider world. This opening changed not only trade routes but also the flow of ideas, culture, and political thought. With ships arriving more frequently, foreign travelers, scholars, and books reached the Philippines, sparking intellectual curiosity and the desire for progress. Scene 2: The expansion of world trade. With the Suez Canal open, world trade flourished. The Philippines became more active in global commerce. Agricultural exports such as sugar, tobacco, abaca, and coffee grew in demand. Wealthy Filipino families, known as the Ilustrados, gained influence through business and education. But not everyone benefited equally. While the elite prospered, many farmers and laborers remained poor under harsh colonial systems. The gap between the privileged and the common people became more visible, fueling calls for reform. Scene 3: The influx of liberal ideas. Alongside goods and wealth came liberal ideas from Europe. Filipinos were introduced to new concepts: freedom of speech, equality before the law, and the right to representation. For the first time, people began to imagine a society that was fairer and more just. These ideas inspired young Filipinos to question colonial authority and demand change. It was the beginning of a quiet intellectual revolution, one that would grow louder in the decades to come. Scene 4: The awakening of national consciousness. This period illustrates the gradual awakening of national consciousness. Filipinos began to see themselves not only as subjects of Spain but as a people with their own identity, culture, and destiny. Writers, teachers, and reformers started to nurture this growing awareness, planting the seeds of nationalism that would later flourish into revolution. Scene 5: The leadership of Carlos Maria de la Torre. One of the most important figures of this time was Governor-General Carlos Maria de la Torre. Arriving in 1869, he was known for his liberal views and progressive leadership. Unlike his predecessors, he supported freedom of the press, encouraged open dialogue, and treated Filipinos with respect. De la Torre's reforms inspired hope. He represented the possibility of a government that valued justice and fairness. But his rule was short-lived, and when he was replaced by a more conservative leader, much of the progress he had introduced was rolled back. Still, his legacy remained an example of what a more enlightened leadership could achieve. Scene 6: The secularization issue. Another major struggle of the time was the issue of secularization. Filipino priests demanded the right to lead parishes, which were controlled mainly by Spanish friars. This was not just a religious matter, it was also about equality and dignity. The call for secularization became a symbol of resistance against discrimination. It united clergy and laypeople alike, strengthening the idea that Filipinos deserved the same rights as Spaniards in their own land. Scene 7: The Cavite Mutiny of 1872. In January 1872, Filipino workers and soldiers staged the Cavite Mutiny. Though small in scale, it shook the Spanish authorities. The mutiny was fueled by unfair treatment, heavy taxation, and resentment toward the friars. It revealed the growing unrest among Filipinos who were no longer willing to remain silent. The Spanish government, fearing wider rebellion, responded harshly. What might have been a minor protest became a turning point in Philippine history. Scene 8: The execution of Gomburza. The aftermath of the mutiny was tragic. 3 Filipino priests, Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, were falsely accused of supporting the rebellion. Despite weak evidence, they were sentenced to death by garrote on February 17, 1872. Their execution shocked the nation. The cries for justice grew louder as Filipinos mourned their loss. Gomburza became martyrs, their sacrifice lighting the flame of nationalism that would inspire the next generation of reformists and revolutionaries, including José Rizal. Closing scene: the opening of trade, the spread of new ideas, the push for reforms, the Cavite Mutiny, and the martyrdom of Gomburza. All of these events were threads in a larger story. Together, they ignited the Filipino spirit and set the stage for the struggle toward independence. The 19th century was not just a period of change. It was the beginning of a national awakening, the moment when Filipinos realized that freedom was not only possible, but worth fighting for.